calm, everything's in a normal situation, would not have thought of that. They would start the camera and then they would run. But someone who is in a spontaneous, unexpected situation, someone who is literally desperate to get a shot, who is never standing still, he has no choice. He's going to turn on the camera while it's running. That is what Roger did. All right, now let's just take it a little forward, and we'll. Okay, now you can see Roger start running forward. There he goes. And at this point right here, he turns off the camera. Now, that distance isn't terribly far in terms, but we count it in terms of frames of the film. That's 90 frames of film where he suddenly shuts off the camera. Now, we don't know exactly the speed it was running. We don't know if it's 16 frames or 24. The film actually doesn't tell us that. If it's 16 frames, that's about 6 seconds of film, a little less. If it's 24 frames a second, a little less than 4 seconds of film. So basically, in this distance from here to here, that's about 4 to 6 seconds for Roger to go there. But he shuts off the camera. Okay? And then turns it right back on again and keeps right on running. But what we know from looking at the film is two things. One, when he shuts off the camera and turns it back on, we look at about where Patty is, and she's moved forward what looks to be relative to her body height. It looks to be about 3 to 4 steps. We know one step is about 11 frames, so that's about 33 to 44 frames. Between 1.5 and 2.5 seconds of elapsed time is the amount of time that this camera was shut off. We also know when Roger shut it off and when he turned it on, he's still moving forward and still running this way. So he has started the camera, he's chasing after Patty, and suddenly, for some reason, he lets go of the trigger, and he's still running forward. Maybe he lost his balance. He may have lost his balance or something, had to move his hand away from the camera or something like that. As soon as he hears it's not running, he turns it right back on again. Okay, keeps right on moving forward. Now, you want to ask yourself again, if this is a hoax, why would the person do that? There's no point. There's no analysis technology in 1967 that can see it. You project the film, most people don't notice it. They don't think, oh, that's the end of segment 1, start segment 2. Just a little blur, and these keep on moving forward. So nobody ever sees it when they watch the projected film. There's absolutely no logical reason why a person would do it deliberately. So if a person were actually planning this film, if they were doing everything in a coordinated way, there's no point to that turn it off, turn it on again. And we know for certain you wanted it on because when you switch it off and immediately put it right back on, we can safely say it was accidentally turned off. And you want it on, so you switch it right back on as fast as you can. Hopefully people won't notice it. But in terms of a hoax, it makes no sense. You wouldn't see it on projection. Nobody would have the capacity to analyze it. Why bother? You know, there is absolutely no sense to it from that standpoint. But in a true spontaneous encounter, yeah, well, Roger's doing this, he's following along. But remember, he's just not concerned with operating the camera. He's got something running across there that for 8 years he's been hoping to see, and finally he saw one. And he's got maybe 1 minute of time to try to get some footage of that. He isn't familiar with this terrain. He hasn't walked it before, hasn't been to Bluff Creek in a couple of years, actually, except for the weeks that he and Bob were kind of moving around on it. So he's improvising virtually everything here. So if he's improvising, he's not paying all that much attention to how he's taking the camera, and if his hand happens to slip off for a minute, he grabs it right back on and turns it back on. In a real spontaneous situation, that disruption right there, where he switches the camera off and on, that makes sense. Okay. And as far as a hoax thing, it makes no sense at all. And you have to assume if it's a hoax, everything is planned, everything is deliberate. Because everything is relaxed. You know who the person is who's over there, you know what they're doing, they've been assigned their route, you know where you're going. Roger's already walked that whole thing twice, once there, once back. Everything is relaxed, everything is calm. all the cameraman has to do is concentrate on operating the camera. Once the cameraman is focused on his camera, he's not going to let go of the trigger. But we know it was accidental. So the only explanation for that accidental disruption between segment 1, where he turns it back on, for segment 2, would be that it's a real spontaneous event. Okay. Now, turns the camera back on, keeps running forward. Run, 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 run. This is only about another 4 to 6 seconds. He gets to this point right here. Now, at this point, he turns the camera off, but does not turn it back on. We may safely conclude at this point, he doesn't want to shoot any more footage at the moment. Well, why wouldn't he want to do that? A couple of things. This ground is going down a little bit lower. The ground here is getting higher and higher. Patty's actually going down an incline, so when he's about at that point, he can only see her from the waist up. The ground here is blocking everything from here down, and she's getting harder and harder to see. By the time he goes down to about here, he's going to lose sight of her completely. Okay? Then he's got to cross the creek, go up the other side. Now, again, let's look at this from the standpoint, if it were a hoax, if it were for real. Okay. If it's a hoax, remember, Roger's already walked that twice. He knows the creek is there. He knows where to go down the bank, what's a good place to cross, what's a good place to come up. He's done it twice already in the last 20 seconds, if this is all for hoax, okay? He knows he's losing sight of the subject, but he knows the subject's already got a planned path, and when he climbs back up here, he knows exactly what to expect when he gets up there. No surprises. Okay. So he runs along to this point. He's thinking, okay, I'm not going to get any more good footage. She's starting to disappear. So fine, I'll just shut off the camera. I'll go here. I'll go on my path. I'll cross here, come back up, and I'll start shooting again up there. That would make sense if all of this is planned, all of this is just staged. Problem is, that is not what happened. What happened, curiously enough, so when Roger gets a little closer, right about here, he pulls the trigger of the camera down so fast that literally it only takes 2 frames of film. That's between an 1/8 and a 1/12 of a second, depending on which camera speed he's running at. But he literally pulls the trigger down, and as soon as the mechanism engages, he lets go of it, and it breaks. There's only 2 frames of film exposed in segment 3. Okay? Now, the interesting thing about it is that in order for that to happen, this finger should be on the shutter. But from the time that I told you, the end of segment 2, when Roger was here, before he went to there, I told you we turned off the camera. Did you ever see this finger on this shutter? No. Because I'm relaxed, I'm in a control situation, I know what I'm doing, I'm presenting something in a deliberate way to all of you, but I'm in a situation where everything is under control, everything is occurring as it should be. I don't have my hand on the shutter of this camera. I'm just carrying it. There is no way that 2-frame trigger slip is going to occur if I'm in control of the situation, because if I'm in control of the situation,